Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Colleen Peters, and I'm the product manager for the Deepwater Multibeams 712, 304, 124, and the product manager for SIS. How many SIS users do we have in here? Fantastic. How many multi-beam users do we have here? How many other Kongsberg stuff do we have in here? Cool. I'm not going to answer any of those questions. No. We're going to answer as many questions as we can, of course, but first I just want to kind of introduce what it is that I do. My focus is really on making the products better, so improving your experience using them. So on the hardware side, that's going to be functionality, installation, stability, stuff like that. On the software side, that's really the thing that you're interacting with the most. So that really is the button click experience, the stability of the software, you know, making sure it does the things that you need it to do your jobs. So that's really what I work on. I'd like to, I work remotely in Rhode Island, but I'm often in Horton at the home office in Norway. So I'm, you know, out on our vessels doing some testing of the software and hardware and working directly with the developers, you know, to make these improvements. So I'm on East Coast time most of the time. If you guys, you know, have any questions, let us know. But I'd like to introduce two other team members here. First, we have Allie Johnson.
I know a good number of you. I'm Allie. I am a field service engineer with Kongsberg, and I do a lot of the sea acceptance testing. So you'll see me out on your vessels whenever you get a new system. I also do a lot of the training, and I'm based out of our Seattle office. So if you training needs, that would be part of the
And then also we have Mimi Lobecker.
Hi, everyone. Mimi Lobecker. I'm a technical account manager for Kongsberg, so representing Kongsberg products to the email fleet and the fleet. Anytime these boats are being built for you guys, I work with the shipyards to write the proposals for our gear, advice about which gear makes sense for your platform. Let me know, I can do that. If I don't know, I report back to Norway as well. I put together all of the necessary. And training, you could talk to me about training as well. Let's flesh out if you guys are looking to have a week of training and this is the gear that you have, you can work together through your schedule. I guess that's generally, I also support the uncrewed platforms right now. So basically Sailguard and Exhale and their needs and reps. And I'm based here at UNE. I sit at the Center for Coastal Mapping, the partner there. And I know this area well. I love it. I've been here for 13 years.
What's your name again?
Mimi.
Oh, okay. Right, yeah.
So Mimi was a former hydrographer and deep ocean mapper for the NOAA fleet. Allie was a chief hydrographic survey tech for the NOAA fleet. And then I was also a senior survey tech at NOAA and lead marine tech and other ships. So all of us have extensive sea time using this equipment and the software. And so one of my goals is to bring that user experience to the development process to try to make things make more sense and work better for all of you guys. So as part of this discussion, I want to go through a couple of things. I want to give you some new information. A lot's happened in the last 2 years since I started. I want to make sure you have all the good updates. And then we'll just open the floor to whatever it is you guys might like to talk about. So the first thing is that, I don't know if you've noticed, for those of you who've been using Kongsberg equipment for a long time, we used to be part of Kongsberg Maritime. Now we are a separate company, so all of the scientific gear that you have on your vessels is now run by a separate company called Kongsberg Discovery, which is at the same level as Kongsberg Maritime. And what does that mean for you guys? New stickers. So gonna pass these around. If you guys just, you know, take one, pass them around. If you didn't get one, see me again. get those. Yep, on it.
Jump back again in the corner, so you switch chairs.
But what this also means is that we have a brand new website. So we've done a lot of work to try to collate this information in a hopefully more meaningful and easy to find fashion. So I just wanted to point out a couple of resources on the website. So this is the Kongsberg Discovery homepage, kongsberg.com/discovery. So this is where you're going to find all of that information about the products. If you're looking for a data sheet or the download links or support information, that kind of stuff, all the general company stuff. But what we've done on this particular website is we've developed a product catalog. So to try to make it a little bit easier to find the things that you might be looking for. So you find your category, you have the catalog here, you have a whole bunch of filters available. So hopefully this helps you just narrow down what it is that you're looking for. Maybe you have a project coming up and you're trying to decide if you want to use this or that system, or somebody's asking you which one should we get for a future ship. All that kind of information is here. I want to just point out, I'm just going to point out the SIS product page just because that's been totally revamped. So here I've tried to detail information about the different license options, so you know which one is which and why you might use one versus the other. A bunch of random examples of things you can do in SIS, some of the key features. And then at the bottom here, you can find links to all of the important stuff you might like to look at. Your software downloads, manuals, data sheets, all that kind of stuff. But instead of having to come to the website to navigate all of that to get to those documents, I would recommend bookmarking this other page, which is the actual site that hosts those documents. This is kongsbergdiscovery.net. So make a bookmark of that. This is where all of the product documentation lives. Some products are a little bit more fully populated than others. Obviously, mine are populated. So this is a work in progress, but this is where everything will be found. So a couple of things to point out here are on the EM systems. They have at the top here, these are the product sites that I just showed you from the main website. End user documentation, this is all the manuals and data sheets. The technical notes is the one I wanted to point out. This is where we're going to put anything that's an application, you might have seen floating around as an application note or technical note. It's basically a little article that goes in a little bit further depth about a key feature that is not particularly spelled out in the manual, because if we really wanted to spell everything out in the manual, it would be about 350 pages long, and you probably wouldn't find it anyway. So we're just trying to extract some key topics here. I have a whole bunch of technical notes that are in the process of being published. So just check back here in a while and you might see a couple more on the list. The important thing that I want to point out is the new downloads page. So this is for the SIS software, which is bundled with the EM software and the K controller software. So when you download a file to install on your system, there will be a different file for each EM system because it's a bundle. So you're not downloading SIS and then the K controller and then the EM. You're going to download one bundle of stuff and you're going to put that on your workstation and install that all together. And the reason why we do this is because if people mix and match their different versions of stuff, it makes it really hard for us to try to troubleshoot your problems. So this is the recommended combination of stuff that you should be installing on your systems. So on here you'll have the button to download the actual file, then the release notes, that takes you back to the website, and that documentation site I just showed you. And on the release notes, you have one for each component. So the bundle, it just lists these three components. That's all that is. But the numbers for these change in sort of different frequencies. So it's really important whenever you see a new update, you want to actually read the release note, see what's new, see if it's something that is really critical for you to install. I know a lot of folks really don't like installing updates 5 times a year. Probably not during the field season, or at least not in the middle of a cruise. So there may be some releases that are bug fixes that really only have a couple of fixes, and they may not actually be critical for you. So you can just skip it. So you want to be the judge of that by reading those release notes. So the way this works for SIS, for example, is 5 is generation 5, 12 is a major release, and 3 is the patch fix. So if you're running 5.12.2, anybody here running 5.12.2 that you know if you see 5.12.3 published, it's up to you if you want to install it or not, if it's going to make a difference for you. Otherwise, you might just wait until the next major release comes out. How do you know when the major release comes out? Any releases, updates, or notifications? The QR code, you guys want to scan that on your way out? That'll take you to a page on the website where you can sign up for our updates. If you haven't signed up already, please do. This is for all of the mapping products, so EA, EM, and SVP. I know a lot of you have all of those. This will send you an email when there's any kind of update relevant to those systems. Any questions on that? Couple of new things coming down the line. New SIS manual is like imminently going to be published. It's a major overhaul from the one you're going to have in that 5.12 installation documentation. Completely reordered the table of contents. I built out a sound velocity management chapter. It just talks about all things sound velocity, why you should care about it, why it's important, and what to do about it. The calibration chapter, completely rewritten. It actually details where you should put these numbers, why you should put them there, and also, how to do the procedures and why, and the things that you might need to have in place before doing said calibration. So hopefully for anybody that has new people coming in, they should be able to sit down and read that and really understand what it is that they're expected to do during the process of calibration. So that version of the manual is going to be 5.12.2, and then with the next SIS release, I'm going to talk about that in great detail on Friday for everybody that's going to be at the workshop. So I wasn't intending to go into a ton of detail about that here. Unless nobody has any questions or problems with anything, then we can go into it. But I have a feeling there's going to be at least a few. So we want to do that first. But I skipped 5.13 because I don't need 13 in my life. So move past that. Going straight to 5.14. And that will be released also in the next couple of weeks. So that is a major release, not just in number, but also in amount of changes. It's quite a lot, which is why I'm hosting an entire workshop on it. So very long release notes, about 20 pages. So give yourself some time to read through that. Hopefully that details things enough for you to understand exactly how to utilize all of those new features and all of the things that we've addressed. But I want to point out that if you guys have any issues, if you install a new release, whether it's a major one or a minor one, if you have a critical error, something that prevents you from doing your work, please notify customer support, because they can often provide you with a patch fix. I really hate to see people updating and then rolling back versions. I really want to keep this train moving forward, so let's fix it for you, keep you moving on with all the new improvements. Of course, if it really doesn't work out for some reason or another, you got to do what you got to do. But just give them a heads up that you had a problem. Probably going to ask for some data and other things to support that, to be able to reproduce that problem so we can figure out how to fix that for you. We do a lot of testing with the vessels that we have in Norway. It is a little bit limited, both in terms of the available depth ranges and topography in the area. We don't have an EM124 on the vessel, so that is something that's more lab-based testing. So if anybody has an extra bunk on a ship with a 124, give me a call. Love to come out and ride a transit, install that software, see what's going on. So the plan I mentioned for 5.14 is to be released in the next few weeks. This is for all of the existing systems. when we release the 2042, which is a brand new product, not my products, don't ask me details. That'll be coming in the next some number of months. That release is going to be 5.14, but come with K Controller 3. So with all of these versions and the one that's coming out, that's all K Controller 2. K Controller 3 has basically an improved interface, a new way of distributing datagrams on the network, bunch of extra, general improvements, and then also a more automated CPAF configuration for the AND 2042. So lots that come with that, but we want to kind of spread things out a little bit so that you're not getting all of these new things all at once, because it can be a lot to digest. So following that, we're going to be working on, the next release is going to work on implementing a new grid mechanism so that we can accommodate, so folks that use the systems in very, very shallow water, it's a lot more data, it's got to be churned really, really quickly, and making that work a lot faster. And then probably about a year from now will be the next big improvements release, like the one you're about to see. So yeah, does anybody have any questions on any of that? Back down to the burning questions. Fire away. Who's got questions? Come on, I know they're there. Please.
Mike Simpson, OmniSoc. Do you have a security advisory section of your website or a mailing list in case there's any cybersecurity concerns?
For the website or for the products?
For the products.
Customer support is the first point of contact for that. So
Well,
not a.
How do you inform your customers that there is a security advisory?
Well, all of the any advice that we have regarding the systems goes through this mailing list. So you have to sign up to this mailing list to receive that information.
Okay. So if one of those pieces of software has a vulnerability that goes out on that mailing list?
If we discover something that we want to alert customers to, then yes, it would go out on that list.
And then the security risks involved are in the release notes, or how do you communicate that?
That's not in there currently. No, that's not been something that has come up. No.
You mentioned that, not upgrading, not everybody likes to upgrade every time, but to turn it around slightly. I know there's the times I would call a vendor and they'll be, do you have the latest software?
Yep.
Clearly, you're not going to tell me that immediately, but can you expand a little bit on, how old would that have to be before you kind of get upset with your customer not upgrading sufficiently?
Well, I would say that, my biggest concern right now is to get SYS4 users upgraded to SYS5. If you're on 5.11 versus 5.12, it is what it is, but really making sure everybody's in the current generation, because SYS4 is in limited maintenance right now. So we're not doing any fixes to that unless there's something super critical. Haven't had anything come up like that in quite a while. So that's going to be not supported at all in the not so distant future. So that would be the number one priority. I'd really like to see people on either the current version or the version behind, which is why we have on the download page, you have, this is the current version, and I also have the previous version. So if you see here, it's changed to 5.11. So those are the two versions that are readily available for download. If you require some particular version for a reason, because they just exist, you can get that directly from customer support. But I'd love to see people on this version or higher if possible. Because when you start to get into things like using sys remote, if that's of any interest to anybody, you want to make sure you have the same one on shore and on the vessel. And we're constantly updating those. And if you're like 3 versions behind, you're really missing out on a lot of good features. So I know that, various software companies have updates like 4 times a year. That's a lot when you guys have as many systems as you're maintaining on the vessels. It just really adds up. So I would just read the release notes to see if it's something that's of value to whatever it is you're doing for your projects with your systems. Update. You got the hand up?
Start with the easy one. So the compatibility between SYS and OLEX existed with SYS 4, no longer exists with SYS 5. Where is that? Will we be able to see OLEX and SYS 5 play well with each other in the future?
I'm not really familiar with OLEX
Oh, really?
because I haven't used it. So
Okay.
So we can chat about it. I just need to know a little bit more about what it's expecting to receive,
Right.
to be able to answer that question, if you know what that is.
Yes. So OLEX is a scientific charting system developed by a guy named Colleen and Norway. And it's really
I
nice.
know of it. I just haven't used it.
Bring in a lot of data into the charting system. So with SYS4, you used to be able to send a datagram to have your multi-beat data plotted in real time on the charting system. Amazing tool. Our scientists love it.
Yeah.
And now that we've upgraded to the 3 and 4,
Yeah.
we're on SYS5 and we can no longer plot that multi-beat data on.
I'm guessing it's because they're not equipped to accommodate the KML format.
Correct.
So that's kind of on their side, but it would require some discussion between us and them to kind of exactly hash out where that boundary is. But Tip, that would be my first inclination, is they just aren't equipped to receive those data formats.
And the project manager I work with at Kongsberg said that basically Kongsberg is willing to pay OLEX to do the development. Because anyway,
First I've heard of it, but okay.
Yeah, so I want to just bring it up to you.
Yeah,
It'd be
absolutely.
fantastic to see that capability.
Yeah.
Come back.
Yeah, we are compatible with Quincy, Beamworks, iPack, IVA. I don't know
I just had this,
anybody that's
I just
used
had this back.
contact systems with them.
I just had this back for did it always get purchased by what's the takeover?
OLEX got purchased by McKay.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, Seattle.
Which is not a good thing.
Only to add to that, we have these 2 vessels that can order boxes for.
Yes. Can I repeat what you just said? There are NOAA vessels that refuse to upgrade to SYS5 because they love so much the ability to fly OLEX systems.
I'll be interested to know who you've spoken with at Kongsberg, so I can follow up with this person that apparently doesn't pass information very well, so.
Oh yeah, I don't care. It's Travis.
That tracks, okay. Next question.
So I know that in the past, and probably still, Kongsberg's line is that the software is not reviewing data, but the reality is.
Is
while
what,
we're-
sorry?
Is not reviewing the data, but the reality is that while we're using the multi-beam, we're probably looking for places to like have something on the ground. The rigging in SYS is critical to what's happening on the ship in real time.
Yeah.
And in my experience, both with 4 and 5,
Mhm.
we just did a 2040 on the Carson with a brand new workstation and brand new SYS5.
Yeah.
I think we're still running 4 for the 302 on the Thompson because we're afraid of breaking it in between surveys.
Well, you can't use 5 with the 302 anyway.
Right, I know, but
Yeah.
so the thing is, we're experiencing crashes with both regularly. That means restarting the survey and an
Mhm.
interruption. And so is there more support or plans? Are are the workstations adequate? Are other people using non-Kongsberg workstations?
It's a great question. Yeah.
survey?
Yep, so there are a number of customers that use non-Kongsberg workstations. You are welcome to use whatever you like. However, non-Kongsberg supplied workstations are not supported for troubleshooting. So if you're having problems with the software, customer support isn't going to troubleshoot your computer. So that's just one sort of part of the puzzle
Yeah.
that you want to be careful with. So if you want to use a different computer, go for it. Make sure there's somebody that really knows their stuff.
Well, so we're using the
Yeah.
Kongsberg supplied
Yeah.
workstations, and we're having these problems with both the brand new workstations and the brand new software, and old workstations and old software. And we restart it, and usually that works, but we can't find any longer term tech support solutions that
Yeah.
aren't resulting in a crash every other group or every other survey.
Yeah, well, it's hard for me to kind of answer because I need to observe the crashes to understand like what's happening to cause the crash. But one of the things that we're doing, like specifically towards shallow water work, is to improve the grid engine so that it doesn't cause those kinds of crashes because that's such a critical part. And that's why that release is going to be grid only. Like as far as the list of improvements, it's going to be just replacing the grid and anything associated with the grid, because we want to make sure that that is more stable for users. SIS4, I can't really answer why that's happening on both of those without really seeing what's happening, looking at the data, looking at logs and stuff.
Yeah, that's what we get from customer support too. They're like, try this, and it
Yeah.
sucks, and there's no long term. So I'm just wondering if there's like
Yeah.
an attitude or plan for
Yeah.
longer term solving those, or if, and my point about being
Yeah.
multiple workstations and multiple hardware is that it's not limited to one vessel, one hardware, one software
Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
It's something that we're seeing.
Is just out of curiosity, is your 302 workstation older or newer? Yeah, so,
It's the same model as the one that shipped to us with the 24.
yeah, okay, so that
And we have
part should be
backup.
good.
But
Yeah.
they're,
One thing I will mention about the workstation is that there is a new version coming out that eliminates the need for a hardware GPU. So that's something that may improve the experience in terms of the gridding power. So that's on the way. So
What
in
is it?
combination with those two
Is
things,
it still a little big station?
it is, yeah. Currently, yes.
To expand on what you're saying a little bit, I mean, we've had the same thing for years. My recent experience is limited, so it's only. But, I mean, it's always been, if you let the scientists bang on the system too much, they crash it.
Yeah,
It's been,
yeah.
thus there's been an ongoing, it's always been a need for a real-time secondary display, and I guess I didn't think of it whole but, and, combined with Kongsberg saying, please don't intercept our telegrams, put them into this other system, which is something that's required. So I think that this is a significant issue. If you want OLEX to work, I would love to have a completely second machine that did relatively real time, within a minute at most, of displaying the data. Wouldn't take problems off of your hands. I think if scientists don't crash the machines, the techs, especially newer techs, will not be calling people going, why is my machine crashing? And they're like, it's because you're letting people mess with it too much. So
It
I
shouldn't
don't
be
know
that
if it's a comment
fragile.
or a question, but
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that's something that we're constantly working on, particularly from the software side, to make the software more stable. So who here, if you raise your hands again, was on 512? And then who here is on 511? Anybody know? Does anybody not know what version they're
who doesn't
using?
know what they're on?
We're on 512.
Okay.
What Ally said. What the other Ally said.
So just, there are a bunch of improvements to that effect specifically in 514 to try to make the experience much more stable. So I'm hoping that that will go part of the way to solving some of the problems that you're experiencing. And I think that the new grid engine coming down the line will take that another step further. There's a different person working on the workstation, so I can only comment on like the little bit that I know. So they are, you know, working on new models to keep it, you know, as fast a processor as possible, so that you're not having any, you know, buffering issues and stuff like that, particularly when you're working with the shallow water systems. Is this a harder question?
No, no,
Or
just,
like a medium
just to
question?
reinforce that, because this came up at our last tech manager meeting. And so it is systemically across the board with all the large ships in our fleet. They're all having issues with the Kongsberg supplied SIS-5 workstations.
And do you all have the think stations, or do any of you have the
Well,
older
there are-
generation, bigger ones?
I don't want to speak for other institutions. I can say there are some that have already gone with their own custom hardware solution.
Yep.
I would say for us on the School Act, we are about to.
Yep.
And I know that now there are other people.
From a scientist perspective, because I like crashing these systems, I did it 7 or 8 times with Thompson.
Yeah, nice.
It is when you get excited about a site, I start zooming in and it crashes. And then, have you fixed the issue every time we cross the date line? This whole system crashes. Has that issue been
Is that a
fixed?
SIS4 problem or SIS5?
That's a specific one.
Yeah, because that was, as a user
Yeah.
back in that time, I did exactly have that problem. That is resolved. in SIS5, yeah.
So is Kongsberg considering developing any virtualized workstations?
Yeah,
Since I
so
think
that's
what
a,
a lot of the custom hardware is turning into.
yeah, that's a big can of worms, right? Because everybody's gonna have their own preference and flavor of combination of whatever. And that's gonna make it even more challenging to support in the existing software. So I think that, you know, our intention is in the hopefully not so distant future is to go web-based. And maybe once we get to that point, that will work better on a virtual environment, so we won't necessarily have to have all of these, you know, issues around it.
I was just curious what's correction manual was gonna get a chapter or a revised chapter themselves.
Yep.
Just
Well, what I found when kind of reviewing the manual is just that information is all over the place, and it wasn't really in what I considered to be a very good flow. You know, like as a surveyor, I get a new piece of equipment, I want to first know how to install it, then I probably have to calibrate it, then I need to know what to do with it. So that's kind of what I've done with the manual, is try to put it in that sort of workflow order of events. But what I found was specifically with sound velocity, there was just kind of a bunch of different descriptions of different features just all over the manual. And I really just wanted to put them in one spot so that you could go to that chapter and just sort of read through everything you need to know about sound velocity. So one of the things that we highlight in that chapter is the importance of having a sound velocity sensor on the hull. So not a CTD flow through, not a TSG flow through, but preferably a sensor on the hull. The importance of doing profiles, and then what you can do with those profiles in the SIS software. It also mentions integrating with other systems like Sound Speed Manager. And then talks about the World Ocean Atlas extension in our SVP editor within SIS, and then details the absorption coefficients. And then the other thing that I added in that chapter is a document that's been floating around the installation that I think absolutely nobody has read, which is the SSP format, Sound Speed Profile format, which is a Kongsberg format for the profile data that retains the temperature and conductivity salinity information. So that information is now in the SIS manual with all of the relevant stuff. So hopefully it's more visible in that way. And that format is something that you might prefer to use over ASVP, particularly to retain the data from the CTD cast. And then that, what various people have found is that temperature seems to have a pretty big impact on backscatter data. So if you're really trying to collect high quality backscatter, it may be even more important for you to really retain that information. So if you take a sound velocity profile from the CTD, You convert it to ASVP, its depth and sound velocity, it deletes everything else. So that's the only thing that gets sent onto the system. So if you use the SSP format, then it keeps all of that and it uses that data in that absorption profile.
Where can you find information about SSP?
We're
gonna want to add it.
Yeah, it's in the sys installation documentation currently for any version that you have right now. It's in the documents, and if you and then it'll be in this manual, which will be in this next.
I don't suppose you support AML sound. Oh, you do?
Yep.
Okay, nice.
So, talking about sound velocity, I have used Sound Speed Manager for a very long time, particularly on the research vessels where you have like 16 different ways to collect sound velocity. I think it just does it better. So one of my projects will be in a future release to fix the sys SVP editor to make it more functional, more intuitive. You can bring an AML profile directly into sys. You just have to do a little bit of work first. That information is in the manual. Basically, you have to tell the editor, this is the format of my file. Here, go read it. So for things that you have set up as like a pretty static sensor, like an XBT or a SVP, things that don't change, it's very simple. You go, you set it, and then it's just there in the list. But things like CTDs, where you change your sensor configuration every cruise, that's where you have to be really careful to make sure that's updated in that editor so that you're reading the data file correctly. I think that's nonsense. Why do I have to do that? You know, where Sound Speed Manager, you literally just say, this is my instrument, read the file, and then it does it. I'd like to get that somehow incorporated into sys. But in the meantime, because it's such a valuable tool that I think a lot of you guys in particular use, I think there's a contingent of people in Europe that use it, but I think it's maybe more common here. We've done a lot of work in 5.14 to improve that integration, to make that easier. So two of the major updates that we've done is we've made a dedicated SSM datagram which will send, so when you configure it, it'll send this like teeny tiny little, only what Sound Speed Manager needs datagram, plus the SVP datagram as that confirmation of reception. And it'll send that as soon as sys is started and just start spewing it out. So it makes the integration much more simple, reduces network traffic, you're getting exactly what you need. And then on the flip side, if you are managing your profiles in Sound Speed Manager, you know, and you want to export them and import them manually, or you want to export them to archive, whatever the case, you press the Kongsberg button to export that profile, and it'll export in both the ASVP and SSP format. So if you're collecting CTD casts, and then you're going to send your Sound Speed Manager profiles because maybe you edited them, for example, and you want to archive what has been done to them, then you want to take those SSP files and or the ASVP. Leave that up to you, but the SSP is going to retain all of the information from the original CTD profile with those, you know, edits. So now you will press the Kongsberg button and it just exports both. So that's on Sound Speed Manager version 2024.0.2 has that export, that's already there. And then the new datagram configuration is in 5.14, it says 5.14. That was all, you know, arranged with them. I wrote instructions on the Kongsberg specific Sound Speed Manager integration that's in the sys installation for 5.14, and that was done with the Hydro Office team. So it's all copacetic and is not replacing the Hydro Office documentation, just a quick little download of the couple of things you need to do to get your system set.
No question.
No, the answer is no, and on to you.
So because on the vessels, there's different types of sound velocity, whether it's the sound velocity pro, might use all those networks. Anyway, what type of container to know what to use. What type?
I feel like we already talked about this.
We have.
You already know the answer? that just requires a KML format change, and we all love those, right? So we want to be very, very methodical when we make changes to that format, because it has a domino effect, not just on our users, but specifically our data processing software, for all of those folks that, you know, provide that software to adapt to that. So it's on the great long list of things.
You mentioned datagram distribution, so.
Yeah.
Our experience so far with Sys5 has been, we have done an update. So there's no way to save the datagram distribution configuration.
There is.
There is.
There
now.
is. No, there is.
Always has been.
I didn't find it until like a year ago, but yeah, there is.
Okay, it would be great if you could show everyone else
Yeah.
in Kongsberg.
Yeah.
Because even when we
Yeah.
did our SAT.
Yeah.
We did an update.
Yeah.
And it wiped our.
So in the datagram distribution configuration, that little window that pops up,
Yeah,
it has all the different datagrams, you just check them all.
yeah.
There's a file save to file option in that window. I literally never knew about it until like, maybe it was 2 years ago, but anyway, it is there, so you can save that, but you have to save that for like your sonar. So if something that I discovered is, I'll replay data to, you know, get things configured, and then I'll turn on the sonar and then it's gone. So you actually have to set that for your sonar and if you replay data, because the serial number changes in replay. So just if you do that kind of thing, just know that that's not going to find it right away. But you can file save that particular configuration. But in the K Controller 3, we're going to introduce the EM data distributor, which is just going to be another page in the menu of K Controller options. And that is going to allow you to pick whatever datagram you want to send on whatever port you want with TCP or UDP. What that means is you can pick like individually what you want to send where. So if you want all of these datagrams to go here on UDP and these datagrams to go over here on TCP, you can just set all of those separately. So hopefully it makes it easier to get data kind of more exactly where you want it to go with whichever method you want as well.
You would never consider bringing back the XYZs because of the cables.
What do you mean? Which XYZs?
For datagram distribution.
There is an XYZ.
Right, sorry, that was that.
If you look at the sound velocity sensors for a moment, I don't think I heard this from the other side of the room. So in the Armstrong, and we got this from the ride, so I think they have it too. We just have the Daleport through-hole sensor, which in those cases seems ideal. The bottom of the ship is flat, you stick the stick through, you can access, you can clean it, you can replace it. However, there's a combination of one. I don't think we're too happy with the flat bottom ships in terms of our performance. And we've been trying to think of ways to get sound velocity for something that's in a wing down there. I don't know if are there any thoughts on that? I mean, the original system in Armstrong was the pump one, which you pumped it from a location, and I guess we could pump it down there. That system had its own problems, but a giant long tube to somehow get that man also there, get the Daleport down there. What thoughts on how close we have to be? And I think we're supposed to be pretty close to the location. But how to get better sound velocity on the boats that have location? Adequate or?
I bet Kevin or Paul could answer that better than I can. I mean, I don't think that there's like a specific, like you must be within 1.39 meters of whatever, you know. There's
Well, I think it's
nothing
depth.
quite like that. But you want to be at the transducer face as closely as possible. So like a lot of the seawater flow through systems, your intake might be like up the bow a little bit, for example, where if you have a gondola or a drop keel or some other, you know, whatever, you're like a couple meters down further, you really want to have something that's down at the level of the transducer faces if possible.
Exactly. That's the problem.
The what?
Exactly, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
You don't know how to get something down at the level of transducer base on the ships that have a gun.
So can you pass it on to whoever needs to know that we need a temperature probe with the transducer package?
So So that commonly is part of the package. So, yeah, we work with Vailport and there's Reasons and AMLs and there's a lot of options and those are easily added on to the installation package. It's very common to do that. Did that get left off of yours or was it because the 2040 was it like a retrofit situation? I'm not really familiar.
Honestly, the 2040 I can't speak to because it was proposed and spec'd and purchased before I got there.
Yeah.
And there was no consideration for sound velocity. But if the transducers had something that came with them, this is our temperature probe, this works, you can have another one if you want.
Yeah,
Then that would solve a lot of difficulty with.
Usually would be part of the package, so somebody maybe didn't quite tick the right box on that. Some of the systems like the 2040P, which some of you guys going on Friday, those have integrated sound velocity sensors. And with the 2042, you have the option to integrate directly to the transducer as well. So.
Yeah, because the veil ports are subject to damage, so the fact that we can remove it is pretty critical. But I guess, I mean, there might be others that are less subject to damage, we still probably send divers down periodically.
Yeah, I've had experience with hall mounted and the tube installation. I really like the tube installation because you're in control of your own destiny. You don't have to get with the captain to like schedule a diver because God forbid anybody on the boat actually dive on their own boat. Seems to be a whole thing, some people. So it really is dependent just kind of on what's available on your vessel. But being, keeping that in mind as part of that package will hopefully keep that in consideration when designing the layout of the sonar structure. Amy.
I would just add, we do supply third-party sound velocity sensors regularly to people, to groups. We can also make recommendations how to modify your gondola or your hull.
Missed the beginning.
Oh, we do regularly supply third-party sound velocity sensors with deliveries with retrofitting ships. We can also make recommendations for how to alter your gondola or your hull to accommodate them for permanent or semi-permanent installations that would be tax flexible. So we can provide the system and insights,
Yeah.
drawings, and maps, and things like that.
I think right now most of the ships, the gondolas are fairly old. We're making recommendations there. You did supply us with the system on the ride at Armstrong.
Yeah.
Ours just didn't have all.
Okay. Well,
Separate
it's
problem.
special criteria.
But for your point, just a point, if you do make a change to your gondola that way, go for 2 pipes. So you have basically 2 sensors in parallel, you send it down, so you actually see the repeatability of the data that one goes off.
Lindsay, oh wait, no, sorry, you were up first.
For the 14 upgrade, we recently got SPP 29. We are informed to not upgrade SysPod unless there's an upgrade available for the SPP. Also, will there be an SPP 29 14 upgrade?
I actually have to ask. One of the things that comes with SIS 514 is the one improvement with the K controller is the EMSBP integration. I don't know, you're talking about regular SBP.
SPP 29.
Yeah, so I'll just have to double check. I just don't know off the top of my head. But Lee, just to note, with the new site, with all of the downloads for all of the things, the SPP software is provided directly by customer support. It's not available for direct download, because it's not licensed. So, yeah.
For backscatter normalization, is there a way for customers to upload custom backscatter normalization file to SIS for?
Not directly from SIS. That goes to our customer support, and then they'll process that data.
No, I'm not asking for if we have our own calibration file computed.
Yeah.
Without doing terminating to the transceiver.
No.
I think for 2040 there is an option with SIS to upload your custom normalized, but not for 4 and 124.
So that is not part of SIS anyway. That's part of the K controller.
Okay.
But no, not for the deep water systems, because the difference is that when you do the calibration for the deep water systems, it's applied to the PU, and then you're collecting normalized backscatter. I should say relative calibrated backscatter. But for the shallow water systems, that's post-processed currently. They're working on making that during acquisition for the shallow water systems, but just not released yet. Yes.
An easy question. As a member of the tech pool, I get sent out randomly to various ships in the fleet. And some of them have old systems, and some may or may not have documentation that I can find. All of your web pages that I've seen only have current systems. Do I have to contact customer service to try and get documentation on other systems?
Yep. Yeah, if you can't regularly find it on a network somewhere on a vessel, then yeah, just ask customer support. Kevin?
Follow up on this question. I don't know if I understand. So for a deep water system, it's a color.txt.
Yeah.
I guess my first question is, how do you apply that in a water system? Is it
So you collect your data, send it to customer support, they create a file, send it to you, apply it to the PU. And from that point forward, you're collecting relatively calibrated backscatter. For the shallow water systems, you send your data to customer support, they post-process the data and then send you the calibration.
so if the unmade is on TXT, there's apply that, or I guess I'm not following the.
Yeah, like for deep water system, we have telnet in
Yeah.
the classes to and apply. And sometimes it just reverts back to the default file. That's what we find out on Saturday.
Yeah, because I think that's in the PU code, it's not using that yet. So that's something that's not a feature that's there yet. It's on the way. It's under development right now. So it's just not available at this moment.
So you're saying we cannot replace the default file right now.
On the shallow water systems.
Water system?
Shallow water. So you cannot on the shallow water systems collect calibrated backscatter yet.
Shallow.
Shallow systems.
But on deep water, you would update that text file.
Yep.
So for some really updated where we weren't able to get the final process from, but we might have other people who are willing to try to work with the data set that we have. There's maybe a way for us to make our own and try to apply that in the free. But I think that just clarifies my understanding of the answer. Thanks.
What else? We got a couple minutes left. More questions. Do you have any feedback? Like, not, like, why does my workstation not work? Feedback, like, is there things that you wish it could do? Is there a function you're missing? Something that would make your life easier? Like ideas for the future feedback. Do you guys have any thoughts? Anything that you encounter, you're like, God damn it, why does it keep doing this? Probably need another session for that, but go ahead.
The easy way to Sys5 to degrade a 1 degree system to a 2 degree system.
There is a way to do that.
Easy.
Yeah, but it's not on Sys, it's in the PU.
Is there a procedure somewhere in your manuals?
No. Don't be ridiculous, Tim.
He knows what I meant.
There is a way, but you should speak with customer support on how to do that.
What if we're out in a sea trial and inside our outer beams, or outer modules completely inundated by bubbles, and we want to look at the inside modules?
Mhm.
It's really nice to be able to push a button and say, I want a 2 degree system. Customer service.
At present, yes, but I'll make a note.
Just feedback, like the seabed image window there.
Yeah.
When we are resizing things.
Yeah,
wipes
just like
out.
goes away.
That can be Yeah, and then the other thing is the water column, if we do grayscale, and try to change the limits, it just crashes the sys. And that is 512, the 511, that was the
Okay. I'll try that. Yeah, I haven't looked at that
grayscale
recently.
water column.
Okay.
Sometimes helps. with
Yeah, yeah, definitely use that for seats.
Yeah.
Seat protection.
Yeah.
We
I don't know, I don't have a punch card for most asked questions. so.
That's okay. That's not- State display, so we have not been able to successfully use the state display on this.
Yeah, it's on the way for deep water systems. So it is in place for the shallow systems, but it's on the list for the deep water. It's just not in there yet. Yeah. Other feedback, ideas, things, yeah, but
Is there a list of upcoming things like that? But the release notes kind of go backwards, what changed in the last week, but is there a list of?
no,
Oh, like a
no,
review?
just
Or like a, yeah. Yeah,
like
That'd be a
like a what's on the list?
yeah, like this
No.
got 3,000 thumbs up. so-
Yeah, one of the, I know, one of the things I would really like is a ticketing system for customer support. But that's above my pay grade. That's at a higher level than we're able to deal with in Kongsberg Discovery. We beg Kongsberg to be able to support that, for us to implement that. I think that's one of our #1 problems in terms of user feedback is not having that. 100% agree. I asked about that on like my second day at Kongsberg and they were like, I can't do it. Okay. But I keep pestering them about that for sure. So that is very much on my radar. Somebody else got a question? Was that
Actually, I do have a question.
for input?
Going way back to the question Nick asked about virtualizing SIS.
Yeah.
You said something about a web-based display.
Mhm.
So does that mean like we're gonna be setting this thing up at the server and trying to like use WebGL to like to do things?
Yeah, hopefully.
Oh, okay. Doesn't spark joy, not gonna lie. But
It's not fully fleshed out yet. So
right, oh,
the
okay,
intent is to go in the direction of web-based interface. What that really looks like, I can't comment yet on this time. Can't comment yet at this time.
Can't comment because you haven't decided yet, or can't comment because it's a secret?
Both.
Okay.
So secret, you don't even know.
Okay. What else? Got 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left.
Furthering on the SPP 29 question, so talking about software upgrades, and I think we may have stated, so our system and I guess the rods as well, we are somewhat, they're different. Single stage stuff or something on, I don't fully, not have the paperwork in front of me, but DNR and
For the SPP?
for the SVP. So we have a system that's supposed to be able to do a lot more than what the Navy is buying. And so the software question certainly also ties into what's the future of SVP 29s and other boats. The science fleet, because I want to see more. Is everybody going to get? I think they want everybody to have that. But is that different type of system that we have from the Navy system? Is that a distinction that matters for the software releases? Is that why we've been told not to upgrade it?
Okay, so, the ride in particular, the ride in the Armstrong have purchased so the ride in the Armstrong have purchased an additional, like, probably an additional software package that expands on the options in the different states that you can use, so that's an additional purchase, but I think that's only for a specific group of people that can do that.
Right.
Well, it's not just the raw data logger, it's also some of the features within the software. It's the same software version, it's just there are things that have to get added on the backside that stay added, I think, between software updates, but there are things that the field engineers have to go in.
I think the question is, can we upgrade the 24 software release comes out without breaking that?
Right, and that's a great question because they do have to work, they work together. The problem is not so much the SIS version, but it's when the PU doesn't see that, then it's not going to communicate. So that's where that comes in. So I wrote it down to ask and see. I don't believe you guys had upgraded since before the summertime, and there was a new SVP in the summer, so you could, if you're not already on 512, update to that. If you want 512 and the newest SVP, but if you want to wait until 514, I can reach out and get back to you. Couple days. I am verified.
Looking it up right now.
All right, I'll let you guys touch base on that offline.
Where's that?
Just one concluding thought is, if you guys have any issues with your software, the most important thing you can do is write down the version of software that you are having that issue with when you email customer support, including the system that you're using. It's really hard to track like what's going on if we don't know what it is that you're using. But what we've done in SYS 514 in the help menu is included a system information item. So you can press that button. It spits out what your license status is, what hardware you're using, what version of everything you're using, and you can copy that text and send it to support. So you don't even have to figure it out. There's also a customer support button in the help menu, so you can get all the contact information. If you're having a critical issue, call the phone number. If it's not critical, send the email. So look for those in 514. So.
See that directly?
No, I'm gonna hide my email after this. Changing my email. That was the other big update with the company. All of our email addresses have changed, so hopefully you have those. kd@kd.kongsberg.com is all of these systems and support. So if you have any other questions, I'm floating around the rest of the week. For anybody that's coming on Friday, I'll see you there and we'll talk more. Thanks for coming.